remember multiple officers testifying to you of watching Chad Daybell in that front yard, sitting in his car, nervously looking over his shoulder to the location where Tylee was buried. You heard a phone call that morning from Chad and Lori that was recorded. They're searching the property, and you can hear the fear and the guilt in both of their voices. They know what's about to happen.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks so much for joining us here. What you just heard was prosecutor Rob Wood during closing arguments in the Doomsday cult mom trial that we've been following here on the network. And after just around 4 hours of deliberations last night, the jury called it a day, but they are going to be back today to continue at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. They will continue their deliberations, which will determine the fate of Lori Vallow Daybell, the 49-year-old Idaho woman who faces life in prison for first-degree murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the deaths of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. Her children, also included in those charges, is her husband's first wife, 49-year-old Tammy Daybell. Her death, we know that Lori Vallow Daybell has been charged with conspiracy to commit the murder of Tammy Daybell. Now, we are going to be here live on air with you until that verdict is read in that Ada County courthouse. And by the way, we are going to have live video for you in that courtroom when the verdict hands down. We know the judge, Boise, ruled earlier this week that this verdict will be live streamed, so we are going to do our best to cover it for you here on the network. Now, let's go to the closing arguments from yesterday. This was the opportunity for both sides to wrap up their case. I'm going to start with prosecutor Rob Wood, spoke again about power, money, sex being Lori's motive, along with her affair with Chad Daybell. Then we had Jim Archibald, who is one of the attorneys for Lori Vallow Daybell. He countered that argument by telling the jury that his client wasn't around for the murders and that she was a great mother until she met Chad. So as we wait for anticipation and we wait to see for a verdict, I'm joined right now by our boots on the ground, Gigi McKelvey. She has been our eyes and our ears about what has been happening in that courtroom. Gigi, good morning to you. You are live right now outside of the Ada County Courthouse. I want to talk to you about what the scene is like this morning. We didn't have a verdict last night. Some of us were anticipating a verdict last night. We actually stayed late waiting for a verdict. Today could be the day. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, there's been people here lined up since 4 a.m. to make sure they get a spot in the courtroom. There's no ticket system, so it's first come, first serve, although not as many people as I thought there would be. I think with the live verdict being live streamed, especially locals just probably don't want to come get down in the mess. But, you know, everybody's anxious. We've been talking in line about just what we think, you know, what could be the weaker part that they struggle on, what's a shoe-in. You know, it's just been a lot of camaraderie here in line, a lot of people just everybody wanting justice for J.J., Tylee, Tammy, and eventually Charles.
Last night, as everybody was waiting for the verdict, what was the feeling like? I mean, was everybody just waiting outside the courthouse? Did everybody leave? Because I know that there isn't going to be an hour between when there's an announcement of a verdict and when the verdict is actually read. What was last night like?
You know, we all just sat in the courtroom and we kind of talked to the bailiffs in just a relaxed capacity, and we're able to just sort of do the same thing, just tell our thoughts about the case, do a little work while we're up there. So we're able to sit in the courtroom during deliberations. Now, Lori is kept, I'm told, here at the courthouse during these times while we're deliberating, so she will be ready to go when that verdict comes down. But it's been very relaxed. Everybody's respectful. Larry Woodcock had his iPad out and was playing JJ's favorite songs, one of which, We Will Rock You by Queen. It was nice to see Larry with a big smile on his face, thinking of happy times with JJ, dancing around with him. So a kind of a lighthearted, relieved mood that at least all of the testimony and the closings are over, but also anticipation of verdict watch.
And by the way, Larry Woodcock, Kay Woodcock, the grandparents of J.J. Vallow, have been an integral part, central characters in this case. It's interesting you say it's calm, because there's a part of me that wonders if, I feel like a lot of people, even when we have, I think, polls out online, people believe that she's going to be convicted. However, the jury deliberated for over 4 hours yesterday, right? And no verdict. What do you think they might be wrestling over, if they're wrestling over anything?
Well, I imagine the first hour was probably them talking, like, can you believe what we just heard for 5 weeks? Because they haven't been able to talk. You have to elect your foreman, kind of get situated, get organized, and they did not deliberate through dinner. So I'm thinking it was maybe a little under 4 hours that they deliberated. So I wasn't worried we didn't get one yesterday. We all kind of think maybe by the afternoon we might get there, just judging from watching these jurors over the last 5 weeks and how attentive they are, and seeing that towards the end they kind of had the picture and looked, juries sometimes just look ready to go deliberate, and that's where we were. So we're keeping our eyes open. We're going to be here all day off and on telling you the latest of what's happening up in that courtroom.
You said all day. What about all night? Do we know how long the jurors can deliberate for into the evening? And what about over the weekend?
We haven't heard anything about over the weekend. They are allowed to stay as long as they want, though. They haven't set a time limit of what time they have to be finished. We finished up, I believe it was after 6 o'clock yesterday, or 6 or 7 yesterday. So they could stay until midnight if they want. But I don't think I've heard anything about weekend deliberations. So I assume, too, with it being Mother's Day, they're probably not going to be so keen to want to come in and do this on a Saturday.
And that's so interesting that it is Mother's Day this Sunday, and if she's ultimately convicted, I imagine that's going to be very poignant for a lot of people. Let me talk to you about the closing arguments. What were some of your main takeaways from the prosecution and the defense from yesterday?
I thought the prosecution did a great job of just hitting all the main parts and pulling in these text messages that reiterate that conspiracy with the kids, and then showing the manipulation with Lori. She wasn't a puppet on a string. I thought that was very solid. It was, unfortunately, we talked about this yesterday morning. They did show some of the graphic photos of J.J. and Tylee that was just very heavy, and I don't think anybody will forget those pictures, but that's powerful for the jury because that's what it's about. The defense, I thought, did a really good job in closings. We've been waiting on Chad to get thrown under the bus. Now, I've been told Lori was not happy when they did that in closings, and her body language, arms were crossed, lips were pursed, and you could tell she did not like the fact that they waited till the end to throw her husband under the bus, because we've been told she did not want to go that route.
Yeah, we haven't really seen that throughout the course of the case. Maybe sprinklings of it a little bit during cross-examination, but seeming to suggest, the evidence puts Alex Cox, Lori Vallow Daybell's deceased brother, and Chad Daybell, her current husband and co-defendant, at the property where the bodies were found, and saying that Chad is basically a loser. She was like, she was married to Charles Vallow, a rich guy. Why would she decide to leave Charles and go to Chad, who was selling these cockamamie books? I thought that was a surprising defense. But I will tell you, Gigi, if you really boil it down, I think the defense did a good job of saying, where are the texts that says that from Lori to Chad or Alex, when are the kids going to be killed? Or I can't wait for the kids to be killed. Or when is Tammy going to be killed? There's definitely strong circumstantial evidence, but is there enough to show a prior agreement between all of them and a knowledge on the part of Lori Vallow Daybell? One of the most significant text messages was Lori was asking Chad if there is a plan, because she doesn't seem to know what the plan is or know what's happening. You could say maybe that's deniability. She really didn't know what was happening. I don't know if that's what the jurors could be wrestling with.
It's possible, and it's true. I mean, we have a lot of insinuation, and we definitely see the lies. I think ultimately what that jury's going to rely on are the body cam videos and these text messages that show she wasn't just sitting back talking about an appointment at 1 to get her nails done. Right. She's actively asking if her son is at a 0, which we all know means ready to die. So I think that, jurors can use common sense, and that I think that the biggest charge that I'm actually worried about is Tammy Daybell, because, in closings yesterday, the one thing I thought, too, that was good for reasonable doubt was he said, look, this was a process of elimination. We don't even know this was a murder. She was asphyxiated because they couldn't find anything else wrong. So does that lessen Lori's culpability? But at the same time, remembering the jury's faces when they found out she was searching for malachite rings and wedding dresses the day after Tammy Daybell had died, it's powerful. So it's kind of a common sense thing. It's circumstantial. That was pounded in their head at jury selection. Can you convict on a circumstantial case? You have a bunch of puzzle pieces, but put them together, and I think they paint a big picture that puts Lori Vallow right in the middle of all the conspiracy. So I think guilty on all charges, but hey, I've been wrong a couple of times.
I will say this. If the jury accepts the fact that Alex Cox is the one who actually killed the children, then I think one of the most significant arguments the prosecution made was the only connection between Alex and Chad is Lori. The only evidence that's been suggested is that it was Lori, the one who was directing Alex or in control of what Alex did. And it's going to be very hard for the jury to accept maybe that Alex did this on his own unilaterally or did this with Chad without Lori being a part of it, because I think that she being the linchpin, the connector between the two, may be where the route goes. I do want to ask you real quick, the jury didn't ask for anything, right? Did they ask for any exhibits or anything to review in their deliberation room?
Not yet. It's been quiet. There were some rumblings. We thought maybe something was happening, and so we were trying to lip read. We were trying to learn lip reading on the spot, but ultimately it was just their dinner was there. So no, they haven't asked for any exhibits, nothing at all. It was super quiet in there once they went back, and so let's just see how long it takes them today.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Gigi, I know you have to get in that courtroom. I know you need a good spot. And if we get that alert that there's going to be a verdict, we'll make sure to get everything up up as quickly as possible, because we don't want anybody to miss any moment of the verdict of the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Gigi, excellent reporting. I know you have to head in, but we're going to have you back at the top of the next hour. So I'll see you then, Gigi.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. So this is it for me for now. I'm going to be signing off, but the good news is we have a lot more to cover. We are going to have Gigi, as I said, at the top of the hour, and we're going to have our minister murder trial on network right after this break. So let's take a look at that. We'll be right back.